Okay, so Bez Hashem, this week we want to continue with what we spoke about the last few weeks. We mentioned the Malbim. It says in Yoel, "V'hoya achrei chein eshpeches richi al kol basar." Times of the Geula, Abish is going to shower us, spill on us his ruach on all the basar, all people. V'nibi b'nechem, and your children will say nevuah. Ibn Sechem, and your daughters will have nevuah. Ziknechem, the elders, chaloimis, your chaloimim are going to have chaloimis. Bachirechem, and your bacharim, I guess it means the middle age. Chazyonis yiru. They're going to have, chazyonis means they're going to see stuff. They're going to see maris lakim. There's going to be three different things, the Malbim points out. It's obvious in the Psukim, three different things. That the children, the boys and girls, will have nevuah. The elders, knechem, chaloimis, chaloimim. They're gonna have chaloimis. They're gonna have maris lakim through dreams. Like Yosef had dreams. Bachurechem, and your bachurim, I guess that means the middle age. Chazyonis yiru. They're gonna have maris. They're gonna have chazoin shaya. It means there's a madrega from chaloimis, dreams, and higher than that is not when you're sleeping. While you're up, you have chazyonis. The Gemara speaks about it sometimes. The Tanoim had chazyonis, and the biggest madrega is nevuah, and it's very oddly spread out over here. Who's going to have nevuah? The children, the boys and the girls. V'nibi b'nechem b'nesechem. Who's going to have chazyonis? The next madrega, lower, a little bit lower. Bachurechem chazyonis. The chazayin is going to be on the bachurim, and the lowest madrega is ziknechem. Ziknechem chaloimis chaloimis. They're going to have chaloimis. It would seem that should be just the opposite. The zikneim should have the nevuah, and the next should be the bachurim with chazyonis, and the kids should have the chaloimis. So the Malbim was a masber that we were marking this. I'm just going to say it over Bekitzer, that the closer you get to the Geula, you mishtayach more to the ruach of the Geula. So those that are born in the time of the Geula, they can have the biggest madrega. They can have nevuah. The ones that are closer, the Bachrim are even closer. They're going to have chazyonis. This is a Canaan, yeah. They live toward the Geula. The mamash live, and they're going to be zeich to the Eiris Geula, because they weren't born, and they weren't born so close to the Geula. So they're going to have less madrega. They're going to have grace and madregas, mechalamis. The Alavai should have the Rizal's chalamis. He had a chalam on Shabbos. He learned in 70 years. In one chalam, what you can learn, what he learned takes 70 years. But still not going to be the madrega of the bachurim and the children. So the closer you are to the Geula, the more you. Chaim Kanievsky says that someone that's born in Israel has it under a mile than someone that comes, because it's a different tahira, different kedusha. You're born there, you made it that time. That's what we spoke about. So what we spoke about the last year was about how the closer we get to the Geula, we see how the Moifsim, Isis and Moifsim are getting more common in our generation. You don't even have to go anymore to the Gedolim of Isis and Moifsim. Every person has we call today a Shas Tefillah, that you need a Yeshua, and you misgaber on something, you daven, and mamash you see Yeshuas. We spoke about Barichas. But it's a new madrega. The closer we get, the more the Eiris from the Arizal, the more the Melshantov, the more in our generation. And it does not mean that we're bigger than that. It's just like the children that were born in times of Mashiach. Nothing to do with their Maila. They have more asagas. So the closer we get to the times of Mashiach, the closer people get to the Rebbeinu Shalom. We're in a time which we're getting closer to the Rebbeinu Shalom. We spoke about how the Rebbeinu Shalom is Hashos. The Shekhinah is back with us. So everyone, as I want to speak about next year about the tshuva movement, how the hundreds of thousands of tshuvas over the last few years. But the biggest tshuva is when we have tshuva. We don't recognize our tshuva to Hashem. one of those places we recognize, if we're misboining, we'll recognize it, is the Madiregah from Limudat Torah in our generation. The first thing is obvious, everyone knows. Hundreds of thousands of people are learning Yom V'Layla. Such a thing never happened. Even in the second Beis Hamikdash, you have to go back, Pashas, to the first Beis Hamikdash of so many people learning. And if we believe in what our rabbis taught us, if we believe in what our rabbis taught us, that Torah is the größte Zach, there's nothing better than Torah, nothing bigger than Torah, and there's such a ribbi of Torah, we have to understand that Pashat Amunah Ramchal, that the Madrega from what's going on in our generation has never, the Iris and the Kedusha, what's going on in our generation is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And this is Pashat basic Amunah v'shteit in Svarim HaKadoshim. So just from the etzem kamas of Limudat Torah, and same thing with mitzvahs, we have an opportunity to do mitzvahs. Hopefully we'll get to it. Just one example, the Tumas Hadeshin speaks about how many cities had a shiloh. Should they split a esrog into a bunch of cities? Or should just one city have that esrog? We didn't have that shiloh anymore. We have this question, how many esrog one person should have? And that's mamash a from Kirvas Hashem. Every time we have to do a mitzvah, it's Kirvas Hashem. So the biggest tshuva starts in us, and we don't even realize of what Madiregah our generation of tshuva is holding by. So I just want to tap on to one point now, the Madiregah of not the kamas, the Madiregah and kamas of Limudat Torah, how much we learn, everyone knows. Just a koil next to me, chashaving light, but nothing out of the ordinary. Just a luyim, bunch of light for themselves shas. You know, and now you're going for Shulchan Aruch. And there's such a things where such things are very common today. So that's the kamas, but in echos. So I just want to say over a few ma'amakomis from our gedolim that express this idea. I don't know, for some reason over the last few years it's not so expressed, but those that have saw the change in front of their eyes and weren't born into it expressed it more. So let's start with Yecheskel. It says in the pasuk in Yecheskel, Navi Yecheskel, "V'zirakti aleichem ma'im tehorim." I will throw on you pure water. Itahartem. I will make you. I will be mitar you. Mikol matum from all your tumah. Imikol glilechem and from all the zara and all the tumah atar eschem. And the Tanna B'Yoh says on this. It says that what does it mean ma'im tehorim? It says if it ain't ma'im el Torah, it's not going on the tahara from Parah Aduma. It's going on Pashat the Ribiyat Torah. It says Kolash Yava Be'esh. It says like this. Ma ma'im hamalod in mikveh tahara Yisrael v'cholash nivra ba'olam. Ma'im is this thing where everyone's in tahara from. Kach the Torah mikveh tahara Yisrael. So too the Torah is a mikveh tahara for Klal Yisrael. Look how big Torah is. Shematahara is Peish Yisrael, and it's Matahara the Peish Yisrael when they do tshuva. So why? Because it says in the pasuk, "V'zirakti leichem ma'im Torah, ve'ein ma'im el Torah." So you see over here the Madiregah from the Asad Lovoi, "V'zirakti leichem ma'im Torah." Always thought it was some mysterious, like what happened by, like they threw it down by Mountain Torah, and someone's going to throw on us mayim. So the Chazal say now like that. Chazal say it's going on. The ribbi of Limudat Torah is going to be mitar the aver and all of us, and that's going to bring us close to Hashem. Rabbi Gershel Edelstein, when he was speaking to a chinuch, a vada of chinuch to Mechanchim, he said that it says in the Psukim that in the time of Kibbutz Goliath, the Yidden come to Eretz Yisrael, there's going to be Mayim Torah. And it says, the kavanah wasn't for the water of Parah Aduma, as we seem to understand usually. It's going on the Mayim from the Torah. He doesn't bring the Makara, but we're like Yisrael Mufurish and telling about Yo. And he says that that's what's going on in our generation. There's such an error that's bringing Klal Yisrael back to Hashem. That's coming from the Or HaTorah. And he says, even those that are not Isaac in Torah, they have Midas Toivis. We see people that are rochak from Yehadis, and it's, especially in Israel, that they have midas toivis. And he says a lot of people are becoming balchuvas from those houses that are oiskerenik. This all comes from the Mayim Tehorim, which we're being engulfed in from the Rebbeinu Shalom is throwing in us Mayim Tehorim in our generation. The Klosenberger Rebbe Zechon V'Rocha, Divrei Yatzav, he says, "B'zmenenu zeichen liros," in our generation was zeichen to see Tchilas Hisgalus Kvoid Hashem, the beginning of the Hisgalus of Kvoid Shemayim. Shemetaycha Choshech, through the Choshech, Zereach Or, the Or is shining. The Nikol Kvoid Hashem, the Kvoid Hashem is we call the Kvoid Hashem. He says today's days there's more Hashgacha Proteus. Roi Kiyom Hashgacha Proteum Yosem Mamash Roi Ze Meis B'Shonim. Begashmis, Hey Begashmis and Birachmis. We see much more Siyat Shemai and Hashgacha Proteus that we saw in the past in Gashmis and in Ruchnis. That's what he says. Get back to what he said soon. That's what we're holding. That's what we're holding. We're holding the Madiregah of Zerakti Lechem HaTorim. There's a certain art that's coming out and bringing us close to Hashem. The Panovich Rav, it's brought down in the Sefer Rav Panovich. One of the most favorite things he loved to speak about was the Ness. He was before the war and after the war. So when you speak about a lot of Gedolei Yisrael that saw the Klosenberger Rebbe, they saw pre-war and they saw after the war, and they saw the difference in how they looked before the war and after the war. And one of the most favorite stuff he used to love speaking about is the ness of the new generation of the Torah, of the Olam HaTorah in the new generation. He would say, and when he was in a good mood, he would say, in this time, in our generation of Shebet Kufa Hazais, there's growing b'nei Torah, b'miyuchet b'nei Yisrael, more masmidim, yoyse shakdanim, yoyse mechsharim, people that are more muchshar, v'yoyse mitzlachim, that are much matzliach. And here's the biggest chiddush. Eluyim mamash. He's saying that in our generation, there's more eluyim than there were before in the previous generation. It's very possible we don't realize what eluyim is because we're so used to Talmid Chacham that are Baki and Al Shulchan Aruch and Sugis and Shas. In early generations, that would be called eluyim. I don't know, but that's what he says. He saw the koich, the kishreinis of the new generation was a lot more. He says, Harbe Yois, a lot more Masha B'Shivas HaKadoshis, which were in the Yeshivas, the Heilige Yeshivas, B'Europa, B'Lfnei HaShoy, before the Second World War. A lot much more. Once by a Hesped, he says that even though Claudius in the world is a Yerida, going down, but in Yehadis and Rachnius, the new generation, they come to learn Eretz Yisrael and from all over the world. And the Baal Kishrenis are much bigger in our generation, much more than earlier generations. The Goydel and the Koiches and Ulam Loimdim Atzumim, they grow up with the Grace Koiches and the big Loimdim and the Muflig and Torah in an unbelievable way. The Panovich Rav, the Chaskel Sarna, and the Shiva van Cherion brought down that they would say they see the difference that the Chiddush Torah used to took a lot of days to be Mechadash Chiddush Torah, and they would be Mechadash a small Chiddush in the Ketzos HaChoshen. And today everyone has a tremendous siyata to Shemaya, easily it comes fast Chiddushim and Lamdus, and it's an amazing fanem. I was just speaking to a chava of mine. He was talking about how early generations they used to learn a lot more blätter, and it was he got me thinking. Interessante Sache. Everyone complaining how much they learn in the earlier generations. In today's days, people get stuck. I told them, the Gedolei Yisrael already we just quoted, and we quote more, that they saw the difference between the previous generation and our generation, that today's days you sit down, you learn, and the Zerakti Lechem Mayim Tehorim flows. It flows, and the Chedishim come, and it's much harder to proceed. When a person is not being mechadish so much, it's much easier to proceed, much easier to learn 30 plat in a zman when you're not being tayim and you're not being yored l'im kishal davar. And whether it's right or wrong is another discussion, but the mitzvah that's holding us back is a mila. The Chaim Shmulevitz is wrote down the Sefer Machshava V'Lev. He says that the lumdus of the new generation is a lot greater than the previous generation. And he says, you want to prove that? The biggest proof is look in the Chiddush Torah. Look in the Chiddush Torah that's being given out, and you'll see. Go take a kavitz from before the war, take a kavitz from after the war. You'll see. You can't compare the Chiddush Torah from this generation is a lot bigger than the other generation. Victor Nevitzal said the same thing over from, he had a shmuz with Shlomo Zalman Auerbach. He said that in the area of Yigiyas HaTorah, in the Olam is harving a lot more, and they're being much more matzliach. He says Shlomo Zalman said the average bach in our generation is being matzliach a lot more than an average bach in the previous generation. When it comes to Yeshamayim, he said he held that the earlier generations were more Yerushalayim, but that Tzlach in Torah, he held that is not questioned. Our generation is much more ahead. The Kol Tzemach Rebbe brings down that he spoke to the Paravajirov, and they had this discussion. They both agreed on this, that in this generation it's much easier to learn. There's much more siyat to the Shemaya. And the Kol Tzemach says that he remembers that when he was younger, it was much more harder to learn. It was much more harder to remember. He writes, when I was younger, it was much harder to remember. And to understand mashalamdu. When you medam to today's generation, it's much harder. And he goes on. And he says that he spoke it over that he said, because he says I hold that in today's generation there's much more eluyim and balakashronis than there was in the earlier generation. Reb Steinman said the Metzias is, again, all these gedolim, they're speaking from Hespilus of what they saw. They saw the change. They lived. They were Rosh Hashivas or they were Rosh Chabura. They were in the before the Milchama, and they saw what was going on then. And after the Milchama, everything changed in front of their eyes. They didn't have the same shmooze with the Bachrim. Was a total different Madiregah. He said Steinman says that before the Milchama, that it took time to Milchama to Rekiv Eger. You had to be a big lamdan, and it took some time. Today, a small bacher learns a little bit. All of a sudden, he's mechavan to the kivega. He's mechavan to the rashba. He's mechavan to tief zachen. Once the B'chaim Kanievsky, he said that in this generation, they're not only better in Kamos, they're also a lot better in Eichus. There's the Steinman, the Befraim Rothschild, the Goyen Befraim Rothschild, said over Rashiva from Terbish B'Tvarta, he said over that during I think it was the Gulf War, he said that he wasn't sure should he stay. He was a Talmud Ber Steinman, seems like he wasn't sure should he stay in Eretz Yisrael or not, or should he leave. And he went to Reb Steinman, and Reb Steinman made away the whole zach. He said, "There's nothing to worry about. There's no sakana." And he asked Reb Steinman, "What's up?" So Reb Steinman said that because today there's so much Torah around, there's nothing to worry about. There's Tchisa Torah is going to be making. So he says, I don't understand. In the Second World War, there was also G'dei Torah, and what happened in the 6th Day War, and in the Second World War. And he said, yeah, that's true. There were G'dei Torah, but they didn't have before the Second World War. Most people, they got married and went to work. Today we have thousands and thousands He's talking about in the Gulf War, it wasn't as much as it is today. Thousands of people that are learning Yom V'Layla. He says, so much Torah, that Zicha is not a Shaila, you have nothing to worry about. It's Zicha a Shmir El Yoina. That's what Steinman said. There's Baruch Soloveitchik, the Rosh Hashiva from, what's the name? Well, he Moshe Soloveitchik from Sun. He said, Azoy. Shuv and Terzev. He said like this, that today's days they say the Shvacha Bachram. Shvacha Bachram. He says it's not true. He says today's days, the Bachram, they put themselves, whatever they put themselves, they matzliach a lot more. They put themselves to learning, they matzliach a lot more learning. They put themselves to shtusim, they matzliach a lot more. He says that when the Bachram in my yeshiva are when they he's on Shir Gimel, he says, are much better Madrega than I was in Shir Gimel in my yeshiva. The Bachram when I was in yeshiva, the Bachram in our generation outdo the Bachram in his class. And he said, what happened with Rebbe Zalman? He said his Rebbe was a Talmud from Rebbe Zalman. He said Rebbe Zalman, when they asked a Shaila, when they asked a Shaila in Shir, and a regular average Bachar answered that Shaila. Rebbe Zalman was the Talmud from Volozhin. He was the Ilu in Volozhin. And he said over that when he was a Bachar in Volozhin, this question was asked, and Rebbe Zalman answered the question. He was the Ilu Yeshiva, and he answered this same teretz as this Bachar says. When I answered that question, he says the walls of the yeshiva were shaking. Everyone was up with that chiddush. Rebbe Zalman was mechadash. Rebbe Zalman the Ilu from Volozhin. And today's generation, Rebbe Zalman said, an average Bachar, off his cuff, he answered my chiddush. And Baruch Soloveitchik, his father was Briskerov's first cousin. He a big Rosh Hashiva today. He said that in this generation, the Bachrim from my shir are better than the Bachrim that are from me. So the iris, the kedusha, which is the V'zeraka Lechem HaYim Torah in this generation, is beyond anything. And if we're more matzliach in Torah, every chiddush, every oimik comes with a certain kedusha. It just doesn't happen off the cuff. It's a hashpah. It's a hashpah yoina. All the Gedolim are saying there's a hashpah from kedusha. That means to say that the closer we get to Mashiach, it's not just we're getting closer in time. We're getting closer be'echos. We're getting closer to the Yemais Mashiach means that in the world there's a certain tahara that's engulfing us. And I want to point out one last thing, which I think is extremely fascinating. There's a certain ribi in Torah. Everyone knows in today's generation, even Baal Batim learn Torah. Yeah, even Baal Batim, which Baal Batim, almost every Baal Batim needs those that learn Torah. Which didn't exist. Stam Amoritz and Shas is going on most of Klal Yisrael. Shorim say Amoritz, Leif Klal Yisrael Amoritz. They didn't know how to learn. They were not literate. They didn't know how to write, to read. And there was a kaimitz of Tamid Chachamim, but Leif Klal Yisrael were considered Amoritz. In this generation, it almost doesn't exist such a thing. But what's going on in the last 15 years is extremely fascinating. Every Hasidus, every Moisid has bechinas. They have organized, not just learning daf yomi or things. You have chavra 30, 40, 50-year-olds that are sitting and taking tests. You could go, you see thousands of chavra from every Hasidus or every Moisid. They actually get together, they make this Shabbos and Zachem, it was just a big Shabbos and Satmar, and things like that. Thousands of people that are seriously taking tests. When was the last time we heard that people 40, 50 years old are excited to take a test, go back to Cheder and take a test on Gemaras, on Masechtas? Yeah, maybe it's not the Madiregah of B'nai Torah, maybe yeah, maybe not. But it's definitely better than the Madiregah of the Ein Yaakov that they used to learn. And this is Siyat the Shemai, this is a brand new thing. 30, 40 years ago, all the Baal Bat Muslims learned. But no one ever thought that a 40, 50-year-old is for the first time, maybe in his life, going to sit down and be happy to take a bechin on a Masechta. That's a moedige madrega, a moedige or, which we were just seeing in the last few years. And the or keeps on going and going and growing. And it's, like we said over from the Chofetz Chaim, I think, that it's a certain or that if we're not going to pay attention to it, we're not going to realize it. Yet in order to realize it, you got to pay attention to it. These things are happening under the table without us realizing. We're getting carried away with a lot of different things. We have to realize it and we have to invest in it. If you're not going to know what to invest, what the stocks are going up in these days, you're not going to know where to invest to put your achrayas, what to put in your kaiches. And so that's what we wanted to talk about, the madrega of the siyat, the shemaya of Limud Torah in our generation.